Humankind cannot gain anything without first giving something in return. To obtain something of equal value must be lost. That is alchemy's first law, the law of equivalent exchange. And it's not just a rule of alchemy. It's a law of life. Every act of creation, every loss, every transformation begins right here with the law of equivalent exchange, the foundation of alchemy in Fullmetal Alchemist, and honestly, one of the deepest truths about being alive. And this is but a mere manga, a Japanese comic book. Yeah, right. I've watched Brotherhood and read the manga countless number of times, and every time I come back to this story, it reminds me that nothing we gain in this life is free. Not love, not wisdom, not redemption. Everything costs something, and that's not a tragedy. That's the alchemy of existence, of being. Before we even begin, it's worth remembering that this isn't just any story. Hiromu Arakawa's Fullmetal Alchemist became one of the best-selling manga of all time. Over 80 million copies worldwide. And Brotherhood spent years at #1 on MyAnime's list all-time rankings. A spot it only recently ceded, yet it remains one of the most loved, highest-rated anime ever made. And that success isn't an accident. Arakawa created something that transcended genre and culture. Her work draws from Western alchemical philosophy, Hermetic symbolism, and moral archetypes so deeply that it feels like she didn't just write a manga. She revealed a modern scripture of transformation. Few creators have ever bridged pop culture and esoteric truth with such skill, compassion, and precision. This is a story that continues to speak across generations because it carries within it the same eternal pursuit that all seekers share: the search for meaning, for balance, and for the soul's own great work. Fullmetal Alchemist follows two brothers, the Elric brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric, who commit the ultimate taboo in alchemy: human transmutation. They try to bring their mother back to life after she dies, but in doing so, the transmutation goes horribly wrong. Edward loses a leg and Alphonse his entire body, and in desperation, Ed binds his brother's soul to a suit of armor, sacrificing his arm, and from that moment on, their journey begins. No father in sight, who is actually a mysterious figure named Hohenheim, who's been gone for years. The brothers set out across the country of Amestris to find a way to restore what they've lost. And along the way, they uncover secrets about alchemy, about the military, and about themselves that go far beyond what they ever imagined. It's a story about two boys who pay the highest price for their love, and then spend the rest of their lives learning what it truly means to be human. This story, Fullmetal Alchemist, it's one of the greatest stories ever told, not just in manga, not just in anime, but in all of storytelling. It stands beside the myths, the scriptures, the epics that shaped how we understand what it truly means to be human. And as someone who's studied myth, magic, and alchemy, this story hits deeper than almost anything else. Because it's not just a tale about turning lead into gold. It's about turning suffering into wisdom. It's about the real Philosopher's Stone, the one we forge within ourselves through pain, understanding, and compassion. This is Magus in the Media, and today we're doing something special, a manga book review on Fullmetal Alchemist. But more than that, this is a reflection on why this story sits among the greatest works of myth and mysticism. This is the rare kind of story that doesn't just tell you about transformation, it initiates you into it. And that's why, for me, Fullmetal Alchemist stands at the very top. A true masterpiece of the occult, of myth, and of the human soul. Now, where to begin? Here's a good spot. There's a moment in the manga when, after the boys commit the ultimate taboo, they are found by the military, by one Colonel Mustang. He, along with his subordinate Hawkeye, Riza Hawkeye, they enter the boys' house and find the blood-stained transmutation circle on the ground. Such blasphemy in the world of alchemy. Not because of the taboo, well yes, because of that, but also because of the sheer knowledge and power that one must have to perform such alchemy. They head over to Granny's, a family friend with their childhood friend, also Winry, her granddaughter. Mustang heads in the house and finds Ed, grabs him by the shirt and lifts him off his wheelchair. "What did you do?" he yells at Ed. And then Al, his brother, startles Mustang, a talking suit of armor with a boy's soul attached to it. Al says he's so sorry in his smallest boy's voice. Mustang puts Ed down in astonishment. and backs away. This scene grips my very soul. Mustang goes on and explains that Ed has enough knowledge and power that he not only performed human transmutation, but also bound his brother's soul to a suit of armor. And this is exactly what the military wants. Dogs of the military, alchemists as soldiers. To the untrained eye, Ed looks like a boy who has lost the will to live. But to those who have seen the depths of hell, his eyes show passion and striving to take the next step. The journey of the hero, to go on and acknowledge and accept the call to adventure, of one who must get their bodies back. And that's where the story starts, in the eyes of boys who transform themselves into something more. Now Ed vows to train and heal after his metal prosthetics, which should take years to heal, but he vows to do it in just one. And that is just what happens. But before Edward and Alphonse ever tried to bring their mother back, they were still learning what alchemy truly meant. One of the most important lessons in this entire manga comes from their teacher, Izumi Curtis. The lesson of all is one and one is all. She saw their brilliance, their hunger for knowledge, and their blindness. They understood theory, but not truth, the symbols, but not the spirit. So she stripped away every comfort and sent them out into the wild. The Elric brothers were left on a small island with nothing but a knife and the clothes on their backs, and one instruction: survive for a month and return with the answers to a single riddle. One is all, and all is one. What followed wasn't a test of intellect, it was a test of being. The boys starved, despaired, and nearly gave up, but as they lay weak on the ground one night, watching ants crawl across their hands and the stars burning above, they realized something simple and profound. They weren't separate from anything. The ants, the soil, the air, the light, all of it was part of the same living system. And in that moment, they understood what every mystic eventually learns, and one of my favorite lines from the band Tool: life feeds on life. It's the same truth that runs through every ancient teaching, every Joseph Campbell book, every shamanic ritual, every line of poetry and prayer, that the truth that all things sustain one another in a single current of existence. The manga captures it beautifully. The universe is the all, and you are the one. The universe always moves forward, a constant cycle. It is the one thing that binds all together. That is alchemy itself. And from that moment, Edward and Alphonse begin to feel alchemy rather than study it. They no longer see it as the manipulation of life forces, but as participation with it, a dialogue with life itself. What they don't yet know is that Uzumi can perform alchemy without a transmutation circle. She has already faced truth and paid the price, and this trial is her way of preparing them, or warning them. It is one of the most important lessons in the entire story because it gives the brothers the knowledge of unity before they experience the pain of separation. They learn the rhythm of the world, and soon they'll break it. There's a scene where she's not only teaching them about alchemy, but teaching them about martial arts, about fighting. And as she's doing so, she's teaching them about the Great Circle. When you first hear the law of equivalent exchange, it sounds simple, almost mechanical. To gain something of equal value must be lost. But the more you sit with it, the more it starts to sound like life itself. Every choice, every creation, every loss, it's all an exchange. And that's what makes Fullmetal Alchemist so powerful. It takes this rule and turns it into a mirror. Because the truth is, all of us are trying to bring something back. A person, a feeling, a version of ourselves that we lost somewhere along the way. Edward and Alphonse just made that longing literal. They tried to bring their mother back. They tried to reverse death, and for that very act, for reaching beyond the limits of what they understood, for being mere children, they paid a price that would follow them for the rest of their lives. And what I love about this story is that it doesn't frame that act as simple arrogance or sin. It's not preachy. It's human. They acted out of love, out of grief, just wanting their mother back. And that's what makes their fall so tragic and their journey so meaningful. When the transmutation goes wrong, there's that moment the eye opens inside the transmutation circle. Reality shifts and the world itself seems to stare back. That's when Edward is pulled into a different space, a different realm, into that white, infinite space, and comes face to face with truth. Truth is one of the most haunting and brilliant concepts in the entire manga. It's not a god in the religious sense. It's not an angel or a devil. It's just the universe, the law that balances all things. Edward loses his leg and then his arm to bring his brother back into the suit of armor. Alphonse loses his entire body. But in that moment, Ed also gains something. Knowledge. A glimpse behind the veil. Behind him stands his door of truth, mirroring the Tree of Life diagram associated with that great Renaissance mystic, Robert Flood. 10 spheres, 22 paths, a map of creation, of consciousness, and divine ascent. Every alchemist who commits the taboo sees their own version of that door. It's the symbol of their soul. It's how they can perform alchemy. The pattern of their understanding, and the price for that knowledge, for seeing truth, is always the same. You lose a piece of yourself. That's what makes this story so real to me, because that's what makes it feel like when you reach for something beyond your grasp, whether it's magic or philosophy, or just trying to fix something broken in your life, you always give something up. Sometimes, time. Sometimes, peace. Sometimes a part of who you were. But that's the beauty of it. That's the process of transformation. And that's why Fullmetal Alchemist hits so deeply, because the law of equivalent exchange isn't just the law of alchemy. It's the law of life. When Edward is pulled into that vast white space for the first time, everything about Fullmetal Alchemist changes. The series stops being just about two brothers and becomes something much, much deeper. A meditation of what it means to know. In that liminal space, he meets a figure called Truth, a being which is both God, universe, all, you, and me. A being who smiles and says nothing that isn't already written into your very soul. Truth isn't a villain per se, even though our small human minds would first think so. It isn't even merciful. Truth simply is. You can almost feel it when you read those panels, that weightless silence, that recognition that you are standing in front of something infinite. And behind Edward, his door of truth, that ornate gate carved with symbols, numbers, and names, and the Tree of Life itself. That image, the one that sits behind Edward with the 10 spheres and the 22 paths, isn't just random. It comes straight from the work of Robert Flood, a Renaissance mystic, an alchemist, who used the tree, along with many other magicians and mystics, as a map of consciousness, as a model of the universe. In Hermetic thought, that tree represents the structure of the universe and of the soul, from the material to the divine, from Malkuth to kingdom to Kether, or the Godhead. I believe every alchemist in the story has their very own door, even if they never get to see it, their own version of truth. Azumi Curtis, Ed and Elle's teacher, has one that mirrors Edward's, almost identical, showing that they share not just a craft, but a spiritual lineage. But Alphonse's, though, is different. It's another pattern, another tree, another way of seeing the world. Maybe Ed and teacher's stubbornness links them in more ways than one. And that's what's so profound about this idea. Each person's gate is personal. It reflects the totality of their own being, their knowledge, and the limits of their understanding. To pass through it is to experience initiation, to glimpse the machinery of existence, and at the same time, lose part of yourself to it. And interesting enough, you then don't need a transmutation circle after you've witnessed truth. Just your own hands clapped together like praying. Yet, the hands that pulled Edward into the door, those dark, grasping arms, they're terrifying with that massive eye staring directly, deeply into you. But they're also symbolic. They represent the parts of the self that the seeker must confront, the dissolution of ego before illumination. And in real alchemy, the first stage of the work is the negredo, the blackening, the breaking down of the old self, so that something new can emerge. That's exactly what happens here. Edward and Alphonse are literally dismembered by truth so they can begin again, purified by loss. It's a brutal initiation. Kind every true alchemist, every seeker, and every person goes through in some form. You reach for something beyond your limits, and in doing so, the universe asks, what are you willing to give up to know? That question echoes through the rest of the manga. It's the thread that ties every act of transmutation, every moment of sacrifice, back to this one scene. The moment the brothers saw the shape of truth and paid the price for trying to become like gods. And yet, that's where their real journey begins. As Edward and Alphonse travel further into the world of Fullmetal Alchemist, their journey stops being just personal, becomes more entangled with people, with homunculi, with chimera, with versions of ourselves trying to truly understand, why does loss have to be? Why do we have to suffer? And much, much more. Conspiracy on a level they couldn't even ever imagine is taking place right underneath their very feet, unless they come to understand that they will uncover it themselves. They start to realize that what happened to them wasn't an isolated tragedy. It was part of something much, much larger, something that has been quietly shaping their entire world. The country they live in, Amestris, isn't just a military state. It's an alchemical construct. Every border, every city, every war, all that bloodshed, all of it has been arranged for one singular purpose: human sacrifice on a scale the world has never seen. I get this eerie feeling this sounds very familiar to what may be going on in our own world today. Something to think about. And behind it all is a single figure, Father, the being known as the dwarf in the flask. What's so fascinating about Father is how familiar his hunger feels. He's the shadow of the true alchemist, the one who wants power without understanding, immortality without compassion, divinity without love. He's the perfect symbol of what happens when knowledge becomes arrogance, when the pursuit of perfection turns into the fear of being human. In creating him, Hiromu Arakawa gave us one of the clearest depictions of the false god archetype, the demiurge, the self-made being who tries to rule creation by cutting himself off from it. In the way he maintains control is actually through his 7 creations, the homunculi, each born from one of his discarded sins: pride, greed, lust, wrath, envy, gluttony, and sloth. They were the symbol of the Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail, a mark that, in real alchemical tradition, represents the eternal cycle of death and rebirth, the unity of opposites. But in Fullmetal Alchemist, that symbol is inverted. It's not enlightenment, it's imprisonment. It's the endless repetition of desire consuming itself. Each homunculus embodies a part of humanity stripped of balance. Pride without humility. Greed without gratitude, lust without love. They're what happens when a person tries to separate themselves from their own shadow, instead of integrating it. Watching the brothers confront these beings is so powerful because you can feel what really is happening underneath the surface. Every battle, every encounter, it's not just a fight between heroes and villains, even those badass fight scenes happen and they're brilliant. It's a dialogue between the human soul and its fragmented pieces. And this is what makes Arakawa's story so profound. She's not just writing an adventure, she's revealing a structure, a world that mirrors the process of alchemy itself. The microcosm and macrocosm are one. The body, the state, the world, all built on the same laws. The story tells us that corruption doesn't just exist in governments or secret labs. It lives within us. The circle of control we see drawn across Amestris is the same one each of us draws when we try to control life, to possess, to fix, and to perfect. And the Elric brothers' journey, their defiance of this false god and his system, becomes the work of breaking that circle. It's the act of reclaiming what's human from what's been consumed by power. And that's what makes this manga so special to me. It's not just grand, it's actually intimate. It reminds us that every empire of control begins as a single fear inside the human heart. Now I want to move on to a different character that has a profound influence in this story. For all the power and chaos moves through Fullmetal Alchemist, one of the most profound presences in this story is quiet, almost humble. And his name is von Hohenheim, Edward and Alphonse's father. When he first appears, he feels distant, even cold, the kind of father who vanishes when his children need him most. But as the story unfolds, we realize he's actually been carrying a burden no ordinary human could ever bear. Hohenheim isn't just a man. Spoiler alert. He's a living philosopher's stone, a being filled with thousands of souls, cursed and blessed with a knowledge that no single mind should ever contain. His name isn't random. Von Hohenheim comes directly from the real Renaissance alchemist Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, better known as Paracelsus. Paracelsus believed that true alchemy wasn't about turning metal into gold. It was about transforming the soul, healing both body and spirit through understanding the unity of all things. That belief lives inside this character. In the manga, von Hohenheim has seen the origin of his own tragedy. He was created alongside Father, both born from the same magical experiment, him being a mere alchemist's apprentice, with his blood to help create this dwarf in a flask. But where Father sought to become God by rejecting his humanity, Hohenheim spent centuries trying to reconcile them. There's something deeply moving about that, actually. The idea that the man the brothers resented for abandoning them was actually out there trying to save the entire world. He's the living mirror of what Edward and Alphonse are fighting for: redemption, not power. Hohenheim's story captures the heart of what makes this manga such a canonical work of myth and modern philosophy. It's entertainment that cuts to the soul. It makes you laugh at its absurdities. It makes you cry at its honesty. And it leaves marks that never fade. In a way, Hohenheim represents what happens when the great work succeeds. When the alchemist integrates the divine and the human, he's the antidote to Father's pride, the proof that perfection isn't separation, but it's compassion. And as Hohenheim passes on in the end of the story, kneeling at his wife's grave, he thinks to himself how, when he met his wife and had his 2 boys, he was so grateful to be alive. He's had a full life and it's time to let go. And yet, damn it, he just doesn't want to die. It's such a small, quiet moment, but it's one of those scenes that never really leaves you. Because after all the symbolism and philosophy, Fullmetal Alchemist is a story about people, flawed, loving, broken, and beautiful. And von Hohenheim, the immortal alchemist who finally learns how to die at peace, reminds us why this story isn't just one of the greatest manga ever written. It's actually one of the greatest human stories of our time, maybe of all time. That moves us on to the driver of the story, the Philosopher's Stone, the search for the immortal Philosopher's Stones. What drives Edward and Alphonse? The homunculi use it as their power source. People strive for it, and it has a very, very dark secret. And like in all real alchemy, the stone isn't what you actually think it is. In the world of Fullmetal Alchemist, the Philosopher's Stone can do the impossible. It can break the law of equivalent exchange. It can restore what was lost. But that power comes from human souls, from the suffering and sacrifice of others. When I first read that, I remember sitting with it for a while, because it's such a brutal metaphor and such an honest one. It shows what happens when power is pursued without compassion, when knowledge is separated from love. The stone in the story is the ultimate test of the alchemist's heart, like the Ring of Gyges of Plato or Lord of the Rings, more modern telling. For Father, it's a means to escape limitation, to become a god. And that's what makes this so much more than fiction to me, because like any true initiatory text, this story shows you both sides of the work, the path of separation and the path of unity. I think about my own journey, the moment where I reached for knowledge and wasn't ready for it, where you took maybe a little too much, where I wanted to understand everything all at once, or as a fool on his journey, I fell into it. And like Ed, I learned that divine wisdom isn't just something you acquire. It's something that unfolds through loss, through patience, through the willingness to let go of control. That's the true meaning of the Philosopher's Stone. Maybe. It's not about breaking the law of equivalent exchange. It's about realizing that the exchange itself is sacred, that everything we lose is transmuted into something else if we have the courage to see it. There's this beautiful irony in how Edward's relationship with the stone changes. He starts by wanting it to fix everything, to undo the pain, to make him whole again, to get their bodies back. But by the end, he realizes that wholeness was never lost, only hidden from himself. When you see that, when you feel that, the story stops being just a manga. It becomes more like a scripture, an alchemical parable written for a new age. Because every one of us is chasing some kind of philosopher's stone, some idea, some perfection, some secret that will finally make things right. And what Fullmetal Alchemist reminds us is that the real stone is built out of humility, love, and understanding. It's forged not in the laboratory, but in the heart. And that's why this story has stayed with me for so long. It became a backbone for my own magical practice, for my own search for meaning. Because every time I revisit it, I see another reflection of that same law. That transformation isn't about gaining more power. It's about becoming whole. And by the time Fullmetal Alchemist reaches its final chapters, you start to feel something shift. All the searching, all the battles, all the philosophical questions, they start to condense into something simple, something pure. The story stops being about power and starts being about truth. Weird. Not truth the being, but truth as in clarity, acceptance, and what is love. Edward Elric began this journey wanting control, the ability to fix what was broken, to undo his mistakes. But through loss, through failure, and through the countless lives he touched, he learns that true alchemy isn't about mastery over the world. It's about harmony with it. And that's what we call the great work, the completion of the alchemist's transformation. It's not when you become a god, or when you hold ultimate power. It's when you finally understand your place in the circle of life, not above it, but within it. When Edward stands before truth at the end, ready to bring Alphonse back, he's faced with that final exchange. He's asked, "What will you give?" And for the first time, he doesn't hesitate. He gives up everything that made him an alchemist, all his knowledge, all his ability, everything he thought defined who he was, his portal of truth, that which gave an alchemist the ability to use alchemy. And for the first time, he doesn't hesitate. He gives up everything that made him an alchemist, all his knowledge, all his ability, everything he thought defined who he was, his door of truth, that which gives an alchemist the ability to use alchemy. And truth asks him if he was really going to fall to the level of being a normal human. And Ed replies, "Fall to their level? I've never been anything but an ordinary human. I'm nothing but a hopeless human being who couldn't even save one little girl who was turned into a chimera." And that moment right there gives me goosebumps. It is the completion of the great work. He gives up power for love. He chooses life over mastery. He steps out of the laboratory and back into the world as a human being. That's all he's ever been. That's the essence of what alchemy has always been trying to teach. It's not about changing matter. It's about transforming the self. And in Edward's sacrifice, Arakawa gives us one of the most beautiful conclusions in all of modern storytelling. Because it's not just about redemption for him, it's about the balance of all things. The same law that once haunted him, the law of equivalent exchange, finally becomes peace. In that moment, the equation is complete. He loses alchemy, but he gains everything that truly matters. That ending has stayed with me for years. It's the kind of lesson that doesn't fade with time. It deepens with time, because it reminds us that our own great work, our own search for meaning, power, or truth will always lead us back to the same place, the heart. Every loss, every failure, every letting go refines us. It burns away what's false until the essential remains. That's the Philosopher's Stone within us. Not a jewel, not an object, but a state of being. And when you find it, when you realize that the miracle isn't changing the world, but loving it as it is, you understand what Fullmetal Alchemist was showing you all along. The divine isn't above us. It's within the act of living, within every honest exchange, within every choice to love instead of control. That's the real great work. That's the true alchemy of humanity. When I think about Fullmetal Alchemist, I don't just think about the story. I think about how it changed me. And yes, of course, I think about the story because it's brilliant. The story is amazing. And for those of you who don't understand, yes, watch Brotherhood, the anime, but also read the manga. Read the text. Every page, every loss, every revelation, it all carries something ancient, something sacred. Arakawa didn't just write a story about alchemy. She captured the essence of it, the transformation of the human soul through experience, love, and pain. There's a reason this manga has become a modern canon. It's both a masterpiece of storytelling and a text of initiation. It makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it breaks you apart and puts you back together. Interesting. It's the kind of story that stays with you long after you close the book, echoing through your own life, in your mistakes, your healing, and your hopes. For me, it's become one of the backbones of my own spiritual and magical understanding. It mirrored the same pattern every mystic and seeker must walk: to lose what you think you are, to face truth, and to rediscover the sacred within the ordinary. And that's what I love about Fullmetal Alchemist. This manga stands among the greatest ever written, not just because of its plot or its character, but because it dares to teach. It's not afraid to show you the cost of knowledge or the beauty of humility. It's a story that speaks to the philosopher, the magician, and the human being in all of us. And that's why I believe everyone should read it, take it in, share it with others. Amazing stories deserve to be told over and over again. And remember, there's no such thing as a painless lesson. They just don't exist. Sacrifices are necessary. You can't gain anything without losing something first. Although if you can endure that pain and walk away from it, you'll find that you now have a heart strong enough to overcome any obstacle. Yeah, a heart made full metal. You've been watching Magus in the Media. If this story moved you the way it moved me, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what Fullmetal Alchemist means to you, or what stories changed your life. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you want to dive deeper into the hidden meaning behind the stories that shape our lives. Every myth, every manga, every movie, they're all reflections of that same ancient search for meaning. So join the community, share your insights, and let's keep building this space together, a place where philosophy, storytelling, and the sacred meet. This is Magus in the Media, and this has been my Fullmetal Alchemist manga review. And until next time.